Okay, so we've had a bit of a look at how the author of Jamaica Inn started off with the big picture of the coach heading through this massive hilly terrain and terrible weather, and then sort of zoomed in on the details. So she starts off with the coach winding its way through the hills, quite a big shot there really in your mind, and then zooms on the coach itself and the outside of the coach, and then goes in further into the inside of the coach. So what we're going to look at now is where an author's done the opposite. And it's very important when we're talking about, focusing on the big picture and then zooming in on the smaller details, or focusing on smaller details and then zooming out, or focusing out to the bigger picture. It's very important to think of this not just as a literal change in focus, so a literal change from literal large objects like the countryside to small objects like people in the coach, but also a metaphorical change here as well. And this is what happens in this extract, which is from the novel Spies. So you'll notice as we go through this that this is very much told from the first person narration, and it's someone recollecting their memories. We will actually be looking at this extract in a bit more detail later as well when we look at first person narrative. But to start with, we'll look at what the narrator's focusing on. So they're focusing on the tea table, and they're focusing on very small details here. 4 blue beads that held the weighted lace cloth covering the tall jug of lemon barley. So a very mundane, very normal, very small in both the literal and the metaphorical sense. It's tea. Okay, and again, the narrator throughout the next paragraph, they're focusing on very trivial events here, very small things. And as we progress, we're sort of dealing with the train. So we get this idea of the real world, the outside world beyond these two people talking, actually coming into play here. So we've got the trains on the real railway, and you've got that nice sort of comparison there really from the boys playing with trains, pretending to make a transcontinental railway, probably, I don't know, with sticks or something, to the real railway. So instantly you've got that switch from the small model railway to the real railway outside. And you've got the introduction of another character here, and we can see the focus of the story shifts from just these two boys, small world here, playing with the train set at the bottom of the garden, to the wider world of the railway, and this other boy's mother. So this other boy's name's Keith. And again, we will focus on a bit more, but we've got this thing here that Keith so calmly and quietly drops his bombshell. So we already know that there's something monumentous that's going to be happening. So the author's already introduced this big thing, but he hasn't told us about it yet. Because what the author's now doing is just really basically going over what they've already said, really. And as we progress through this extract here, with the author sort of mulling over in his mind when and where it actually took place and the finer details of things, so the author's very much focused on the finer details of things in his memory here, we've got the introduction of the policeman. So had the policeman already happened before this? So in our order of importance, we've got 2 boys playing with a play train set, and having tea, which is obviously a very minor, very small, very trivial thing in both senses of the word. The author then sort of pans out to give us the detail of the railway, the real railway, and the mother. So it's getting wider. The scope of the story is getting wider. We're zooming out, basically. And now we're introduced the policeman. So we're getting more of a sense of the real world coming in. A bigger picture is being painted from very small details. And again, we've got the author mulling over various details of his memory, which we will be looking at later. And again, we've suddenly got a bigger thing. So we've got a bigger event coming in here. He's coming to arrest Keith's mother. So the 2 boys are thinking that Keith's mother is somehow in trouble. Okay, and we're also sort of introducing this idea of illness. Now, note that we haven't actually been told that there's a war going on yet. This is set in World War II times, but we haven't actually been told that it's going on yet. We're focusing very much on the small detail and then scaling out. So we've gone from the boys playing, to the real railway and the mother, to the policeman, to a possible arrest, to a world war. The author's really sort of painting the picture from very small details and bringing us out and zooming out here. And we get that here, we get that an idea that it's wartime here, because everyone lives in dread of the policemen and telegraph boys because they would be the people that break news to people if a loved one had been killed or was missing in action during the war. And again, we get this idea about the blackout as well. So we get an idea at some time around the war. If you know about World War II, obviously people used to black out their curtains. So again, we're sort of like zooming up in order of importance and magnitude here. That's what we really want to get a look at here. And we'll keep on going through here. So he's talking about that, and here's the real bombshell. Here's the bombshell that we were told about a page ago. And this is a really big event, even bigger than the war, especially for the narrator. So the child Keith here, you'll get an idea from the extract that Keith may well be making this up, by the way. But he says, my mother, he says reflectively, almost regrettably, is a German spy. So now that's a massive deal. That's the bombshell. So we've gone from, in this extract, very small, minute details to the mother being a German spy, and the war, and the railway, and then everything that's tied into that. So we're looking at the small details, zooming out to the bigger details. And of course, this isn't just real bigger details. This isn't just like literal bigger details. These are metaphorical bigger details as well.